Jenna?
Let's talk a little bit more about that, John. You know, you've heard a lot about the Muslim Brotherhood, an Islamic fundamentalist organization banned in Egypt for years. Now, one of the key opposition groups taking part in this uprising we're seeing in Egypt. We want to show you the symbol that stands for this group. The translation there, this is the Holy Quran, be prepared. But what really is this organization? We have a few facts to share with you. It was created back in 1948. It aims to bring Islam into the mainstream. The family tree has two major offshoots. You have the radical offshoot, you also have ideological. And as you can see from this graphic we're going to show you, the radical offshoots include some of the biggest names in terrorism, including a key deputy to Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, you know that name because he's the self-proclaimed mastermind behind 9/11. It also has spawned this group branches in 70 nations, including Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Sudan, even the United States. So we want to talk more about this with Michael Scheuer. He's the former head of the CIA's bin Laden unit. And Michael, just a basic question, is this group a group we should fear?
Well, it's a group that we should be honest about. It is an Islamist group that intends to institute an Islamic government in Egypt initially, and it is a group that aspires to creating a worldwide Islamic world, Islamic state. There's no doubt about it. They've also been involved in violence in the past, but as opposed to what Mr. Indyk told your viewers for a reason I have no idea. Part of the reason we've been paying Jordan, Egypt, and other countries so much money in foreign aid was to suppress the Muslim Brotherhood. Not to suppress secularists, but to suppress the Muslim Brotherhood. And so they've gone underground. They're extremely effective organizers. And frankly, in Jordan, in Egypt, in many countries, they're the only group that has the organization that could administer a government if the current governments go.
Okay, so let's pick up off that point. Just a couple real basic questions about them. Does the Muslim Brotherhood support human rights like the freedom of speech or freedom of religion?
I don't think you would find anything in the Western style of civil liberties, but within the Islamic context, they would certainly be a less brutal government than Hosni Mubarak or the Saudi regime or the Jordanian regime. Would they be a danger? The real question here, we pussyfoot around a lot. Israel's security depends on the maintenance of tyrannical governments in Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and other places, because any government that falls in that region will be more supportive of Islamist aspirations, less willing to control their borders with Israel, and so we're in a real hard spot here.
So if we don't deem them, though, as a nation, we don't look at the Muslim Brotherhood and deem them a terrorist organization. From what you're saying, you said they'd be less tyrannical than the current government in Egypt. If that's the case, then why as a nation are we working so hard to suppress them? What should we be aware of? You're saying let's not pussyfoot around here, so let's not. What do we really need to know?
What we need to know is that the only likely group with an effective organization to take power in Egypt is the Muslim Brotherhood, whether up front or behind the scenes. So our choice is to either support Mubarak and keep the current tyranny in place, or step back and let the cards fall where they may. But you've noticed Mr. Indyk, Leslie Gelb from the Council of Foreign Relations, Richard Cohen in the Washington Post this morning, all of the Israel supporters in the United States are wildly anxious to prevent the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood. And that really doesn't have to do with American interests. It has to do with their desire to protect Israel.
That's an interesting point, one we're going to have to think about as we continue this conversation, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael Scheuer, on the Muslim Brotherhood. And John, we should just mention, we said the Muslim Brotherhood was created back in 1948. It actually was earlier than that, 1928. So this is a group that's been around for a long time, although for some of us, it's really the first time we're hearing about them.
We are going to continue watching very closely that situation in Egypt, but also